For both of you all, for a day like today, when you're seeing the guys clean out their locker, what's just your overall message now that you guys had a few hours to sleep on it and just wrapping up the overall season?
You want to start first? I think you have to be honest with the guys this morning, and we sat and hugged it out and talked about a lot of things, but you have to be honest, they're disappointed with the way the season ended, just like we all are, and you have to do some self-reflecting, look in the mirror, but at the same time, you're positive with this group because this group has shown a lot of resiliency, fight through some things, come together quickly, in a hurry, on the fly. So as a collective, from the coaching staff and the players, I think they did a tremendous job. And again, like I've said before, there's a pathway for this group to continue to grow individually and as a team together. So it's an exciting pathway.
Gives me a last chance to say thank you to the group, not only the players, but everyone that supports us throughout the course of the year. So for me, Megan, that was the first bit of it, is saying thank you to all those who participate in some form or fashion. Then to encourage the group how we were able to stay together, find ways to get it done, really limit our use of excuses, but to encourage what the focus and energy and production was like introspectively for everyone to look at it. And then the last piece was to challenge the group also of getting a chance to define our culture, have a clarity of our culture going forward, and challenge themselves to make themselves better when they come back.
I know you're not an excuses guy, but a lot of the guys talked about if there was time, that if this group had some more time together, more games together, seeing the Sixers group who have formed that chemistry. When you now look back at it, if this group had the time, is there any excitement level that you think that this group could have gotten to if there was more games together?
I think I look more towards what's to come now. I think already transitioning that way of looking forward to training camp, looking forward to having connections over the summer with different individuals. So that piece of it, I talked about expediting our relationship. Now I get a chance to, really authentically form some bonds over the course of the summer, and I think that'll carry into next year.
Question for both of you. What did you see in this group that you want to keep building on going into the summer and heading into next season?
Looking at it from my vantage point, I think it was the collective spirit of the group. These guys all have a little chip on their shoulder we talk about a lot, but the spirit of the locker room, the camaraderie that was building and growing, and it's almost a shame that the season's over because that has to come to an end and then you have to part your ways. So it would be nice to see this group continue to stick it out and be together for as long as they can, and hopefully, as JV said, over the summer they take advantage of being around one another, and I think you have that in these individuals. They really feel like they're a close family.
Sean, kind of piggybacking on that, just what's your priority heading into this offseason? Are you content with the roster as is? Do you feel like it needs to be improved upon in a significant way? And I guess more specifically as it pertains to Mikal, do you view him as the person who can be the number one player on the team, or do you feel like you need to get somebody who can kind of be that number one person?
Well, I think to answer the first part of that would be, let's just be strategic as we go. Let's have some patience and poise. That doesn't mean we won't make changes to the roster. I mean, it's pro sports. I think the decision is not entirely going to be up to the Nets, right? The players have to make their decisions as well. So hopefully we've put ourselves in a place to attract our own group to come back, attract free agents. I mean, I think they know what Brooklyn is about. Over the course of the last 5-6 years, Brooklyn's certainly been on the map. I think they've been able to witness Jacque as a coach, and that speaks volumes. So as we prioritize things in the summer, we won't be in a rush. We'll do our due diligence as always. I think there are certain things that this team needs, and we'll be, trying to plug those holes and so forth. But again, it's, as Jacque said, it's going to be important to see how these guys develop over the summer and what they do. I don't think We've seen the best of you in our core group, yet. I mean, they're young enough that they should still be developing, and that to me is exciting, when you get them around our coaching staff, our performance team, and they get to, because really in the off season, that's when you make your gains. In the in season, it's hard to make a whole lot of gains. Regarding Mikal, I think he's proven to a lot of people that his role can continue to get better and better and better and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think I would be pretty silly to be up here and limit him and say he cannot be something he can't be. And I would say that, really for a few of our guys. So I think he's, a few people have had their eyes open to what he can do. But now when the ball's in his hands in those key, crucial moments of games, can he step up? Can he be that guy that we can rely on in big moments? And I think we saw it a little bit in Phoenix when Devin Booker was out. He carried a considerable load for them. And then we saw it this year where he came in and immediately was sort of a crowd favorite. People could get behind him because just the way he played, how he played, and he didn't shy away from those moments either. So I would definitely not limit him in saying he could only be X, Y, Z.
I'm having a moment of panic. I meant to look up how many picks you have.
A lot. Well, we have. I mean, look, that's one of the exciting things for us going forward. Knowing that there's only 3 other teams in the league that have more first-round picks than us. From now until 2030. So that's part of the pathway, right? We've shown, this group has shown an ability to draft well, and the coaches have shown an ability to really develop players well. So for me, looking forward to that is exciting. We've never had that. I've never been able to look at JV and said, hey, look at this draft class in 2 years from now. Look at this. Usually it's like, yeah, but we got to trade somewhere to get a pick. Whereas now we've got that pathway.
And is part of that excitement? I mean, you're basically in the same spot as last year, first round out. Do you look at it like you have ability to build quicker now with the assets or money, whatever it is, than you did last year's with the roster situation?
I think, again, being strategic and how we build, we have the ability to build in several different ways, right? Like how we build through the draft, how we build through free agency. I think we've got a committed ownership group that Joe has never said, he's not ready to go all in. He was willing to pay over $100 million in tax. So when the right opportunity presents itself, I think we're in the right market. We've got some of the right pieces already. What does it look like in a year? What does it look like in 3 years? I couldn't tell you that, but I can tell you that we'll be prepared for whatever may come down our way, and we'll be preparing, and that includes, developing, a young group of draft guys.
Sean, this is twofold. What did you learn from the last whatever, not even just from the last 27 regular season games and the postseason games, but from this entire season and this entire process and how it worked out, that would inform your thinking about how you would build and whatever kind of mistakes that you might want to avoid in picking either a target or an asset that you might want to acquire?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brian, and something that we've thought about a lot, and we will continue to think about as we go, involving all the people in those decisions. I think we have to be careful not to dwell too much on the past. I mean, we've certainly reflected on it, but I think the process of looking forward, like Jacque said, and really focusing on this group is going to be really important because they're here. We've seen what they've done over the last 27 games. I don't want to discredit them. I don't want to look past them. And they are the priority. That doesn't mean that we don't look back and say, well, what ifs, right? You can always, had we not done this or should we have done this? So it gives us a moment, and I've said it before, to reflect and say, well, did we have the right process in place? Were we really ready for that group? Was the Borough Brooklyn ready? Was the team ready? Was the surrounding pieces ready when you bring in Kevin, Kai, and James and that group? But at the same point, that era is gone, and we're on to something new here, and it's a new and it's an exciting one, one that I think the Borough of Brooklyn can be really proud of and get behind. And these young men will be exciting to watch for years to come.
And I mean, unless I'm mistaken, the timing, I guess, has changed with the restricted free agents or your own free agents now. Are you hopeful that at some point between the end of the finals and the start of free agency that you could come to an agreement with Cam, or do you expect that that market will end up setting itself?
I think as opposed to Cam knows how we feel. I mean, JV and I sat with him this morning. We hope he's back. I mean, he's a tremendous and a tremendous person on and off the court, high character. His IQ is off the charts. That's exciting to be around. He adds a lot to our group, not just on the court. I mean, everybody sees what he delivers on the court, but then when you see him in the locker room, it's certainly refreshing to be around somebody like him. And hopefully, he's here, but he's going to have decisions to make. So at the right time, we will certainly be having those discussions with him and his agent, and we hope that the Cam will be back. But he's a big priority for us. There's no question there.
Sean, we've asked Jacque enough about this. Just do you know, what can you provide update-wise on Ben with his rehab, and if it's been determined at this point yet or not, if he would need another surgery or something else?
Yeah, he is checking the boxes on meeting these different markers along the way. So at this point, he does not need surgery. That is the hope going forward, that he will not have to endure another surgery, and he can keep progressing. The timeline for this would be that he'll be back 100%, probably September 1, and that would be the goal, that he's a full go in training camp and ready to go.
Coach, a question for you. Obviously, we know you can kind of track how a player gets better during the offseason, or you can see what the offseason workouts look like. I'm curious, as a coach, what does it look like in terms of going back to the drawing board and seeing ways to maybe improve or tinker with processes during the summer?
Yeah, I think that's part of that kind of self-evaluation. Christian, I think it starts with me diagnosing, different points of the season, what was needed, what were some of the blind spots, what were some things that were missing. I think you diagnose your staff, what's needed, what does it look like going forward. So different progressions of really some self-evaluation. How was my connection with players, 1 through 17? You just go down the list of holes you might have missed, the processes you might have missed, and that the biggest part of it is how they can be improved. That's the ultimate goal, is we're all trying to get better. So that's going to be my push, my challenge towards myself, trying to find some of those holes and plug them up in the off season and be prepared best of our ability as a group going forward.
When you took the reins, the team was 2-5. Excuse me. The team was 2-5 when you stepped in, and then they go on a run, and then obviously things change, and now you're just trying to stay afloat. But even though the season kind of ended a different way, maybe you didn't want to, are you able to look back and look at the season as success, given everything you had to endure and how the team finished the season?
You kind of know how I think, which is good. We got a chance to know each other this year. Is that I just felt like this is a part of our journey as a franchise. So I just think it was some of the bases, along the way, first, second, third base, and we're not home yet, kind of thing. So for me, I look at it as it's part of our process, it's part of our growth. It was supposed to happen. This is us moving forward, and that's the thing I'm most excited about.
This one's for Sean. You mentioned that you have a lot of draft capital, and that's a pathway that hasn't always been available for you guys. But a lot of the first-round picks that you have aren't your own, whether they be swaps or having been outright traded to you. Does that change the calculus on how you might approach things, if at all?
Well, it does take away the ability to tank and have a bad season, right? I don't control those picks. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of picks that are far enough out in the future. It just gives us the flexibility. It gives us, we have a young group here that is wanting to compete. So we're going to be going after it every year. There's no sense that we would not with this group. That's not the mindset that I think we're taking on here. So how does the draft capital help us? And whether we draft them or whether these picks are used in trades down the line. But as you know, several of the picks are 4, 5, 6 years out. So they're quite a ways out from now. So The good news with that is that gives us flexibility in how we build.
Sean, given this team was kind of thrown together at the deadline and, like you said, didn't have time or a training camp to gel, does that make it more difficult for you to place an evaluation on this stretch as you kind of determine the path moving forward?
I think I would have loved to have had an entire year, an entire season of looking at what this group could look like. But at the end of the day, I think there was some real bright spots here in how the coaches and players connected, how the conversations that were had. We saw players take their games to new heights. We saw players that maybe we didn't expect to have the type of roles they had really exceed them. One player I talked to, Nick Claxton, just before, and he's ready for another big offseason because he saw the benefits of what he did last offseason. And I'm obviously biased, but he should be in the running for most improved player, defensive player of the year. He should be in running for a lot of things. I mean, I'm really proud of what Nick accomplished, and that started this time last year. So, I mean, these guys have a big off season in which to continue to gel, continue to grow. So, we'll be spending a lot of time with them. The coaches spend a lot of time with them in the off season, and we'll be evaluating them throughout the whole place.
Sean, sorry, Evan Barnes, who's the first just got here, so introducing myself to you. But in kind of following on that, how much do you value just the continuity with this group over the last 20 games? Obviously, there's been so much going on the last year and a half with the big trades and guys leaving and whatnot. How much do you value the continuity you've seen from this group going forward and trying to evaluate what to do next, or is it just a matter of doing what's the best available for this team to keep growing?
Continuity is a big thing, right? It's a team sport. It's not about one or two players. You're going to have player 5, player 7, player 9 be on the same page with the coach and the same page as player 1, 2, and 3. So continuity is big. It's something that's not lost on us for sure. Again, it goes back to how we build. Do we build quick and expedite this thing because a player comes around that we know, hey, this player or players would fit within a group and give us an opportunity to really get back in and be contenders again? That could happen, but at the same time, I don't think we're in any hurry. We're not going to be pushed to make changes just for the sake of making changes. I think we'll do our due diligence and give this group at least some time, to build and come together, and not only the group of players, but the group of coaches with them too. I think we saw some really great conversations being had, some honest conversations being had, and Jacque leading that group was terrific.
Kind of building on that, Sean, with this team and what you've seen from them this season, are there any areas that you feel like you are comfortable identifying as we need to improve on via free agency or personnel base that you can address heading into next season?
Yeah. I think some of those changes will come from within. Some of them you'll see people develop and take a next step. So, that's up to, JV and I will sit with the coaching staff and so say, here's what we see from player X, Y, and Z and what they can work on and where they can go. Without a doubt, we need to make some changes, like in terms of adding some size. I think JV said it last night, add a little nastiness, is that what it was? Yeah, all right. So we add a little bit of that, right? Add a little bit of the Brooklyn grit that we've talked about for sort of 6 years. It's got to come authentically. It's got to be real. I mean, I think we've seen it before, not just here, but around the league. You bring somebody in, and it's not authentic to who they are. But we want to make sure people that want to come here want to be part of something special and be part of Brooklyn and part of this unique situation.
You two sound like Coach Pop saying you need some nasty.
Yeah, I want to make sure we don't get us confused with Pop.
I probably should have done a little more homework on this with the math, but you talked about Joe paying what he did with the luxury tax and everything. I'm not sure how the repeater would work in the new CBA, maybe throw some stuff in this, but do you know where he kind of stands, just given he was paying what he was, given the guys you had on the roster, and how you guys were contending, and kind of where he stands when it comes to some of that stuff going forward, given things have changed?
Yeah, look, we're very fortunate to have Joe and Clara as our owners here and really partners in this, and from day one here they've always been committed to not only the Nets, you've seen what they've done for Liberty and Long Island, but the community and the borough of Brooklyn. So they've never been short to help out, whether it's through philanthropy or whether it's through putting the best team possible on the court and paying for it. So at the right time, Joe has always said, hey, when we're ready to go back, we're ready to go back in. Now, are we going to pay tax for just the sake of paying tax? No, that wouldn't be a smart business decision, right? And I couldn't sit here and say, Joe, we should do this or that. But we'll be strategic about how we get out of the tax, or at the same time, our objective here is to compete, and that's been the objective from day one. I don't think JV is of the cloth of wanting to be mediocre. I certainly am not either, and I don't think Joe is. So at the same time, we want to do something special in Brooklyn, and if it costs tax, he's been willing to pay it.
Just one more for you. You said you want to compete. Are you anticipating making adjustments that allow this team to compete for a championship next season, or is it too soon to call that?
It would be way too soon to call that. I think we need to let the dust settle a little bit. But again, we've always been prepared. I got to give my group a lot of credit. They've always been prepared to debate and discuss everything, so that when things do come across the table, you're not surprised by it. I think in this day and age, we've all seen players demand trade, players behind the scenes ask for this. Teams change, whether it's ownership groups or front offices, and next thing you know, they pivot. So we just have to be ready for whatever comes our way. And if we can make a change that we can compete, we'll be strategic about it, because I don't think we want to put ourselves in a place where we're costing the future for right now either. So I think we've got a bright pathway, and right now I'm enjoying that. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.